Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. We are the only live, local, politically conservative, and liberty-minded program in Kootenai County. This is where we expose the political power players, politicians, and those pesky social influencers. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. Tonight, we may be taking some phone calls. What I'm going to have you do is text the show at 208-366-4671. Send us a text. Let us know who you are, what you like to talk about. We want to keep it on task tonight, so we're going to screen those calls that way. And if you're watching live, be sure to click the share button on whichever platform you're watching, whether that's X, YouTube, or Facebook. And then, as always, you can join in all along throughout that comment section. We love seeing those comments, sharing them, love seeing you guys dialogue with each other. If you're listening back on our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. A reminder, opinions expressed are ours only and not necessarily that of any of our advertisers, sponsors, and affiliates. Sometimes they might be their opinions, sometimes not. And now here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us wherever you happen to be joining in. Those of you that listen later on podcast, special hello to you as well. We have a lot to cover tonight. Right before we were prepping for this show, Coeur d'Alene Police Department released a couple very interesting 60-plus page reports on their findings, forwarding to the prosecuting attorneys for the events that took place at the February 22nd, 2025, Kootenai County Republican Central Committee Legislative Town Hall. That is a mouthful.
It really is, every time.
So we're going to talk about some things before we get into that, but we're going to spend the majority of the show going over the items that I found particularly interesting. We're not going to get through the entire reports. We're going to do that at another special...
You're not going to get through all 60 pages?
No,
60
broadcast.
Plus? Yeah.
But we will come back and do a special report because I think that you are going to want to see exactly what is written by the police and the detectives in their final reports.
We want to let you know that we are doing a special giveaway. We've got a premium snapback embroidered trucker hat. It says a Liberty Without Compromise. I shared that up to the screen because I'm going to show you how you go about entering to win. So it's right here on the homepage at libertywithoutcompromise.com. Click that enter to win button. Get a nice look at that hat, the front, the back, the side. And you enter here. And then there's some additional instructions on how you can get extra entries. So every person can actually have up to 12 entries if you follow all of those steps. This is the hat. I think Dan's holding it in his hand. We've got it sitting out front here.
I don't know which camera I'm on.
What?
Does it matter?
Just the main one. Yeah. Main one. I was sharing other stuff.
Snapback. It is a, what do you call these? The Richardson style 112s. Personal favorite. You're going to love this hat. This is not a cheap hat at all.
And then we also want to remind you that you can submit an op-ed on any topic. If it's a response to something that we've said here on the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast, or something you see going around locally on social media, or just that you want to respond to that you notice with one of your elected officials, something you've experienced in the community, you can submit that op-ed for review at libertywithoutcompromise.com. And then also our latest article publication, I'm going to share screen on that so that you can see. This is from our contributing authors, Watchman Ministry. So a quick overview, the world in general, but the United States specifically, is seeing an increase in people making idols out of politicians and political parties. And I want you to know that all these articles posted on the website too are open for comments right here at the bottom of every single article. So you can contribute your thoughts if you're reading something there that you'd like to
dispute,
have an opinion on, agree with, whatever you want to do. You can do that. Agree, disagree. You can do that in the comment section there. And that's all at libertywithoutcompromise.com.
Marketplace of ideas. What a concept.
Right.
And there's many that seem to be pretty hostile anymore to carrying on a dialogue. Right. And by the way, sometimes in dialogues we have barbs I think the founders were notorious for trading barbs back and forth while they were articulating specifically their point. There's nothing wrong with that, but when it becomes to where you're severely demeaning people, that's where the line gets drawn. Now, I think we all have a tendency, at least the majority of us, to gravitate towards that if we're emotionally charged and we want to fight and emotion takes over. And rather than detaching and getting that 30,000 foot view and taking a breath, figuring about what the other party is saying and why it's important that you listen to that viewpoint and then re-articulate your position. That is how communities are formed, good, solid communities, by those that can truly voice back and forth their opinions. Because we're in America. There shouldn't be anybody that is obliged to having to toe any one line. In fact, the founders, as I've been restudying again, when it comes to religion, the founders were sick and tired of how many different churches were attempting to take over back in those days as the official church and requiring everybody to adopt their doctrine, their theology, instead of leaving it between the individual and their creator. Same thing here, folks. If you can't articulate your position, then you maybe don't really believe in your position because you're convinced of the argument, but maybe you have adopted it because of peer pressure or because you were raised that way or because it is the chic thing to do. We should always be open to having our minds changed if an argument makes sense. Now, we're not talking about changing our absolutes. Absolutes are absolutes. Those don't change. But sometimes we need to step outside of our echo chamber and truly get a wide range of opinions and ideas. And for those of us that call Christ Lord, don't forget the Spirit that is a great discernment for us, as well as the Word to address everything again. So that's a little bit of my little soapbox when it comes to free speech. Look, we're going to talk about this pretty quick here. I get blasted quite a bit online by people that don't want to engage in an actual conversation. I've invited many of them on just this past week to come onto this broadcast. They've all denied it. They've all come up with excuses as to why they will not come in and articulate why they oppose me, why they oppose my views. So that to me tells me that you're not really solid and you're looking for somebody to use as a punching bag, and that's okay. We'll still converse with you. But when it gets to a certain point, I'm going to cut you off. And that's kind of what happened this weekend.
Well, when it's not productive and they're on your platform and it's not productive conversation, the points keep shifting. I want to, Amy Fonstrom said, I want that hat. Can I buy that hat online? Thank you for asking that, because right now the only way to obtain this hat is to enter to win the hat, because it is not available in our online store just yet. So you can enter to win at libertywithoutcompromise.com. It's right there on the homepage. Are you about to say something?
I'm holding a beautiful large Gordo cigar sent to me by a dear friend named Billy. Billy, got him today. Thank you, brother, for these. I'm looking forward to smoking one tonight. Patriot Cigars. Look them up. Good brand, good smoke. Going to be a good time with a little scotch or bourbon afterwards.
We're moving into a quick segment here that's going to offend some people, because I'm calling it. I don't even know Dan. Dan's just, he's letting me. He's like, he hasn't really commented. But you hear a lot of people, so-called conservatives, they throw around the word libtard.
Yeah.
What a bunch of libtards. They're planning a protest this weekend. What a bunch of libtards. What a bunch of maniacs. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't, what I'm saying is there's maniacs on both sides.
Oh,
so
indeed.
If we've got libtards, we can have contards. So I have deemed this segment Contards and Libtards. And this leads into some things that were circulating this last weekend, because there was the Hands Off 2025 protest by Democrats on April 5th. So Stephanie Schad, who has made her presence known more over the last month or so. I don't remember her in the beginning of our campaign.
She was pretty active on Kootenai Spectator back in the day.
Yeah. So, there's those of you who know who this gal is. And one of her comments here regarding this protest last weekend was, libtards are going to protest Trump and Musk in CDA. Again, libtards. So, I just got to thinking, seems to me that we got a lot of contards too, because they're making comments like, can't wait to see the anti-protesters out in full force with pew-pews. What a bunch of retards. We've got the memes that, how about rooting for America for a change, you leftist scumbags? You know, it starts out, okay, I understand. How about rooting for America for a change? I understand the sentiment.
I do think communists are scumbags, though.
Well, and yes.
Just to be clear.
So that's how things, the devil's in the details, right? Because things can get lost in this, where it's like anybody who stands up for conservatives, for the right, for the GOP, I'm not calling y'all contards. I'm just saying quit acting like contards. That's it.
Yeah.
Dana Lyon. We know who this is. So her meme, show us where Trump hurt your feelings. You know what? Some of the words, there's naughty words in this episode.
Yeah.
So I'll let you read that. It's right here. It's inappropriate. Have another booster shot and shut the blank up. You know, these, to me, these are contard statements. How about, oh, the shot isn't getting you fast enough. Get in the bathtub with the toaster. So I'm gonna escape out of that. But I think you get the drift that I don't understand. I just don't understand that behavior by people who claim to be conservatives. I understand righteous anger. I understand and agree that we don't want globalists. We don't want satanic views running through people who are influencing our country. And I understand the anger that imagining that then creates for people. But the idea that just to laugh them off the corner or somebody with a differing point of view shouldn't be allowed to stand out with their signs and do whatever they're going to do without those kind of comments being made. And how does that feel when you flip that around and you have a Democratic majority, or that happens at some point in the future, and you're having those behaviors acted out toward you?
And I think some people are, like me, still extremely angry for what happened in 2020.
And that's where those comments are coming from.
And so some of that is righteous. But again, who are you attacking? Are you pushing your opinions towards people that had a hand in it, or people that are just those that were supporting Democrats and leftists and progressives, or whatever those individuals that were pushing for loss of liberty during the 2020 scamdemic? As you recall, 15 days to stop the spread. We'll give you some security in exchange for your dangerous liberty. But by the way, if you want to burn down Portland or Minneapolis or Seattle, by all means, please do, because that's your First Amendment right. So yes, I think there is a lot of anger. And part of it is because there has been no justice as of this time for people that overstepped, that violated the law, that have not been yet charged. They haven't been arrested. They haven't gone to trial. So I do understand some of that, but you know, let's separate a few things here. And I got a video here we're going to play in just a second from my good friend, dear brother, Quincy Franklin, the BC preacher. And Quincy was down there where this local protest was taking place. Again, these protests were happening all over the country. And in some places, they were being bussed in, operatives. Similar to what was happening in 2020 with Antifa and BLM during the Portland siege and the Seattle siege, Chaz and Chop and Minneapolis and other places around the country. But I don't think that was taking place right here in Coeur d'Alene. Now, it may happen in Boise, and we heard that there was vandalism taking place at Tesla car dealerships down there, or private Tesla owners. That's not acceptable. But up here, remember that not everybody that is a Democrat, not everybody that calls themselves a liberal, not everybody that is a leftist up here has violent intentions or disruptive or malice. They are not the same creatures as my friend Quincy and I were just discussing. He lived in Portland and was broadcasting live when Antifa and BLM were down there at the height of all of the chaos. And he agrees. The people that were there are not the same that are up here. The people that are up here are not quite as radical, depending on your views. But if you truly believe in the Constitution, if you truly believe in First Amendment rights, to say the things that the Contards are saying, then you have to understand that it is equally those people in your community, well within their rights, to hold their signs, to protest, to voice their grievances, to gather in assemblies, to voice what it is they want the public to hear. And if you can't have that respect for your fellow citizen right here in Kootenai County, then what's the difference between you versus the very people that you are claiming that you're against? That's kind of my problem. Now, we're going to play this video to show you how peaceful the protest was in Coeur d'Alene. And then while we're playing that, I'm going to try to send you, if possible, the video that I forgot to send you earlier with my request to people last Saturday, my advice, and some of the blowback that we got. So we're going to go ahead and play this video real quick of Quincy Franklin towards the end of the second hour of this 5 or 6 hour event. And we'll come back here in just a second. We'll talk about it.
Let me double check. No, till 5 p.m. 6 hours, guys. You talk about dedication. That's some dedication for what they believe in. Dedication. 6 hours they'll be out here from 11 a.m. until 5. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Across the street, you have 8 patriots. That's all that showed up. Prayer chain.
This is literally peaceful, ma'am. Hello? What the whole day's been.
I agree.
When did she say that? It's peaceful.
They have been. It's been peaceful. Been peaceful. So they're taking him away on the stretcher. These people are not being paid. I do not believe that. Thank you. I don't personally believe people out here are being paid.
Yeah, so that was right here in Coeur d'Alene, right off the corner of 95 and Appleway. Busy intersection. You saw a lot of people that were holding their signs kind of spread out. I heard there was several hundred people there. I believe it was a 5-hour block. Quincy said earlier, they really know how to, on the left, rally to a cause that the right does not typically understand. But you know, what we saw was people that were saying things that I personally don't agree with. I don't agree with many of the things that they were saying about Elon Musk or Trump or whoever. But again, that is their right. A couple things that I was made aware of prior to that led me to put out a video. Our current sheriff, Robert Bob Norris, did not release anything with this upcoming protest, didn't give anybody any kind of encouragement or advice. He just remained silent like he often does. So I felt the need to put out my own encouragement to those that were going to be in attendance. And if we have that pulled up, we'll go ahead and play it. I sprung this on her at the last minute. Conservatives right now are all spun up with the protesters from the Democratic Party and the leftists. They're holding their protest down off of Appleway and Highway 95 today. And while everybody has the right to peacefully protest, at the time of this recording, there have been no reports of any violent acts or anything that is unruly. While I also agree with the right of my friends to go out and to produce a counter-protest, things like claiming that you want to blow diesel smoke on the protesters as you drive by, or you want to say extremely rude and mocking things to them, I don't understand what you think you're going to accomplish. Right now in this state, we have the majority of the state legislature. We have the majority of the county, and we have the majority of most municipalities when it comes to conservative candidates and office holders. So maybe everybody should take a breath, sit back, let people peacefully protest, let them have their say. They're in the minority. Be the bigger people, allow them to have what they say, and then come up with a good counter argument, the one that doesn't hit below the belt or defame people against their persons. This is Dan Wilson, encouraging you to be strong and courageous and to always do the right thing. So yeah, I was just encouraging those that want to protest. You are well able to do that. You're afforded that right. Those that are against, you also have the right to counter protest. And I think a total of 8 showed up, including Dave Riley.
Yeah, I heard it
with
was
a bullhorn
small
across
group.
the road.
I didn't know Riley was there.
But a couple things that did take place. I heard that there were some sightings of individuals that were rolling past with their diesel trucks, and they did what we call rolling coal. So you blow a big cloud of diesel smoke.
I don't think we have. Ed DePriest is asking if we have video of the rolling coal. I'm
going to guess Quincy probably does in his 2 hours.
But they're denying that happened.
There's no reason to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, really, would you want somebody doing that to your family if you are a conservative and you're standing on that corner?
Well, they did it. They did it to us during your campaign.
Yeah.
When you're, those who disagreed, didn't want Dan Wilson for sheriff. So we got it too, in the face.
Now, people have said, well, what about when things change and there's violence? Now, what we saw in 2020 was law enforcement shirking their responsibilities. Law enforcement that was not making certain to stand up for and enforce the rule of law. Those things then erupted into Proud Boys and other patriots that were clashing physically with BLM and Antifa. So there is a point where if law enforcement is going to abdicate its responsibility and not maintain that rule of law, then you see the chaos that ensues. I still think that in America, we have to avoid, especially as conservatives, unless your life's depending upon it, you must shy away from all forms of violence. It escalates and it never ends good. If you protect yourself, that's one thing, but to engage willfully is quite another. So anyway, we said this, and people say, well, next time they're going to be in power, and that's right. The pendulum does swing harder each way each time. So recall that in 4 years, you may not have a president and an administration that is going to be pro your views. And it could be very badly for you. But if we keep at this rate where it's tit for tat, it does not end well. It never does.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to address, because we're going down a dangerous path. I was in a back and forth with a guy regarding this incident where he said, look, they didn't play by the rules in the previous administration, so we're beyond that. And my question to him was, well, define that for me. How far does that go? You're not talking about protecting yourself, your family, and your property. Because he was responding to the video you posted.
Yeah,
that,
he was
come on, you guys,
yeah.
Come on. But the response, it seems to indicate I'm protecting my life, my actual life, my family, and my property, rather than where this started was a protest on a corner that from what we could see, other than offensive signs and things that, yes, we would agree we don't agree with, but let them do their thing. But the reaction is as though, I now have permission to react and stand on the opposite corner with pew pews, as one of the people was saying. Yeah, like how far are we willing to take this? If you've come that far now in your logic, where's the line?
Well, you guys are self-appointed revolutionaries. You're not going to like to hear what I'm going to tell you right now. But you guys, the majority of you, aren't smart enough to put yourself in the same category as those that declared our independence from Great Britain. Those founders that studied Locke and Montesquieu, those that understood Plato's Republic, and those that truly understood history and fought wars here on the homeland. It wasn't just a bunch of random guys that decide, we've had enough and we're going to now go to arms. That's far from it. In fact, if you watch how long and drawn out it was from things like Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill and the Green Boys and Ethan Allen and all the way up to when the Continental Congress commissioned Washington to gather a militia. You guys need to chill out. You need to truly, if you really say and believe what you say, you need to read the founders and realize that it's up to appointed leaders to change the government. We are the people. We become part of that government, but not just random people that decide, the rules don't apply to us, because you're no different than those that you are complaining about. And I want justice. But you guys have not worked hard enough right now to get to the point where you say it's all for nothing. How many of you young men bother to go to any of the town halls? I don't see hardly any of you. I see you running your mouths online. I see you out there at the range. But what are you doing to truly get involved in your community? How many of you are running for office? How many of you can even be bothered to be a part of any kind of an election or get on any boards? I know you're all too busy. You have families. It's too expensive. Blah, 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 blah. Until many of you get off your asses and get involved. You have every tool you need right now to take back your government peacefully. Instead, you just want to flex your muscles and do your Fox talking points. And, you guys are all tough. You're all really, really tough. But you can't even articulate exactly why you're conservative and why you believe in what you believe. And many of you have just become conservative since 2020. You're babies. You don't even have a foundation in the founders and the defining documents. You don't even truly understand what liberty means. So let's drop the rhetoric down a little bit.
One more thing on this topic before we move on to Brent Regan of the KCRCC. It was incredible to me how controversial you coming out with that statement in the video we played just a bit ago, saying, cool your jets. Stop. He didn't say this. I'm saying it. Stop acting like, if there's libtards, you're calling libtards. Stop acting like a contard. Well, one of those commenters who, again, has, as of late, been ruthless, and this is the last one we'll address that relates to this, is, again, Stephanie Schad makes a resurgence. She has a hatred that is coming from the pit of somewhere. I mean, it's the kind of hatred that you hold for people who have done you or your children personal bodily harm. And it doesn't make sense. So her comment on this video, which I did manage to get a screenshot of it before it was, she went back and edited this because there are rules on the page here. The administrator has rules for language and name calling, so it was edited. But this is the original comment, and I'm going to read it as written. So if you don't like the language, just, I'm warning you now, plug your ears. So Stephanie Schad, self-proclaimed conservative. She goes to the luncheons, attends the meetings, ran for PC, does the things.
Yeah.
So Dan Wilson comes out, makes a statement. Stop the bad behavior. Stephanie Schad says, so done with this ego-filled sack of shit. Haven't we had enough theater yet?
Oh, Stephanie. Do you kiss your mother with that mouth? Stephanie, I understand you're angry. I don't think you're really angry at me, though. I think you're angry at the failing KCRCC. You want to talk about Dan Wilson being an egotistical piece of shit because I'm leading when Bob Norris is habitually absent, has nothing to say about any of these events, as, you know, the sheriff that defends everybody's rights to life, liberty, and property. What about Bob Norris, Brent Regan? Are you tired of their egotistical shit? I mean, after all, Stephanie, remember a year ago, I believe you lost your PC seat in the primary. And one could argue that that was due to Bob Norris and his deal with the Deputy Sheriff's Association, allowing them, in violation of Idaho state law, to use county property, intellectual property, and tangible property like the badge to put out on a mailer that was sent out to everybody before the primary. The Deputy Sheriff PAC, that's the Political Action Committee, that was given this permission to promote their candidates, and you weren't one of those candidates. I've never seen you give any kind of where near that kind of response to Bob or Brent. So what are you really mad about, Stephanie? You want to sit down and talk with me anytime, Stephanie? I'm more than happy to sit down. You can correct me, or we can have a conversation. Maybe we can call a truce. It's up to you.
Well, I got Brent Regan kind of coming after you on social media, which is something I would have thought this guy is in such high, lofty places. And if you are the nobody good for nothing that they all claim, I'm a little bit baffled as to why he's engaging you on social media, poking fun. Well, so what was that all about?
This is kind of back where I was saying you can trade barbs, right? I mean, if you're going to have a debate with people that are supposedly like-minded, we believe in the Bill of Rights. Do you believe in the Bill of Rights, Brent? I don't know. I assume you do, since you're a Republican. But you can throw barbs back and forth and harass each other just a little bit. Brent, though, sometimes I think gets a little spun up, a little more than usual. So he publishes his op-ed pieces all the time. And I believe that he published one on
common
X.
sense.
Yeah.
It's just common sense.
Yeah, on X. And I'm going to post it or pull it up right here to read it, because it's kind of funny. I think it's actually kind of hilarious. You have Brent, who I guess was denied one of these op-eds, so he put it in his Twitter. So we're going to let you know where you can find it. If you have Twitter, you can find it under Brent Regan April 3rd post, so you can read the entire long article. In it, he makes a couple accusations. He makes accusations against other conservatives that he doesn't like, claims that they're liberal and liars, said that one of them had an affair, as adulteress or something. So yeah, he was making some public statements. So he starts out and he says, facts are stubborn things, common sense anyone, lies and liars. Politics is full of lies and liars. You have lies with little or no consequences all the way to the big whoppers. Trump is famous for the little lies, exaggerations, and hyperbole, but generally he is directionally correct while stretching the truth as to degree or effect. Now, some banter entered into the chat. Mark Stewart, who is a PC and a member of the KCRCC, he says, you seriously need an editor or some guardrails. Accusing people of sin like adultery is no different than accusing a person of murder. Both are awful sins. It's also libelous and defamatory. Common sense says it's incredibly reckless and unwise. Carry on. Brent responds, laughable considering your track record. Mark comes back. Do you think there's a nexus between the poor fundraising efforts at the Lincoln Day dinner, the results of the NIC trustees race, and the KCRCC's actions under your leadership? The lawsuits will bankrupt the organization. Honor demands you resign. Well, that's a pretty ballsy statement by Mark to say. Yeah. But Mark is on the KCRCC, and I guess he has the right to say that. Now, I jump in at this time, and I just said, has Brent ever publicly taken responsibility for anything? I'm not aware that he has, and I truly believe that. I've not observed him to ever take any kind of responsibility for anything as a leader of the organization. I quoted Jocko Willink talking about team and any organization. All responsibility for success and failure rests with the leader. The leader must own everything in his or her world. There is no one else to blame. The leader must acknowledge mistakes and admit failures, take ownership of them, and develop a plan to win. So, of course, Brent's response is, I took full responsibility for the electioneering violation of the past committee, both actual and financial. As for a plan to win, last time I checked, you still aren't sheriff.
Oh, ouch.
Now, of course, prior to the election, he called me wannabe sheriff on X.
Mm-hmm.
He's all spun up. He's dropped those before. So again, I consider that to be part of the barbs that we, send back and forth. I respond, I'm the man in the arena, dear chairman. I may have lost the race, but that's not the only campaign I am waging. There's no stopping a man who knows he's in the right and keeps it coming. See you soon. Brent's response, another barb. You're a man who loves his own reflection. My response to him, and this is where I'm going to start taking him to task since we're down this road. At least I didn't take the PPP loans like you apparently did. $75,000 from handout from the taxpayers is such a conservative practice. You, dear chairman, are a fair weather conservative. And I showed a screenshot because he did get COVID money. Now, we understand that Brent is a man of wealth. It's my understanding. I understand that he owns a lot of property overlooking Coeur d'Alene Lake. I know that he has a design company, an engineering company. And during COVID, apparently, he asked for $75,000, rounding it up. And not only was he given that $75,000, but he also was forgiven the entire amount, which is the loan plus the principal plus fees of over $75,000. Free money. And he goes on to say that, dear not the Idaho sheriff, I have paid many times more than that into the system, and I got a tiny piece of it back when I then used to pay my employees overtime to make parts for medical ventilators to save lives. In comparison, if you want a job that's paid with taxpayer dollars, by your own standard, getting paid with taxpayer money makes you not a conservative. That's not really factually correct. I mean, one is you are trading a service for compensation. That's the way the world works. We're not in an oligarchy. We're not in communism or some indentured servitude. So, yeah, if you work as law enforcement does, as elected officials, you get compensated for your time. But you took $75,000 while you were making money hand over fist. Undoubtedly, that's my prediction. I don't know that for certain, because you say you were making ventilator parts, I think, for the COVID efforts. So you didn't have $75,000. You couldn't operate without it, Brent? I mean, wow.
Didn't he say it was for his employees?
The means justify the ends. Well, hell, I was running my company during that time. We didn't shut down once.
Well, then Ed says, what employees?
I've heard that said. I'm just reporting. And this is amusing me. Normally, I don't prolong my exchanges, but I want you to see a side of Brent Regan. So, yeah, I responded, apples and oranges, and you know it, Mensa man, because he's, got a high IQ, so he's part of the Mensa group. I defied the Washington state governor order to shut down during COVID scam. I chose dangerous liberty over certain security, did not stop operations one day and use my own money to finance all my endeavors. Why would you need PPP to pay your employees overtime? After all, you had to be making money hand over fist, making these ventilators. Sounds like you pocketed extra profits and used the U.S. taxpayer to fund your payroll. But again, he justifies it because he's paid so much in taxes over the years. So, he's entitled to a handout. Mm-hmm. I said, by the way, I built my company from my own merits at the age of 24 with no loans while married with 3 kids and a stay-at-home wife. Didn't you inherit your wealth? Any truth to the rumors that your ventilators were defective? It's a question. It's a barb, but it's a question.
Yeah.
Given your propensity for prevarication. I forwarded your contact information and X handle to our client with a recommendation their legal team keep a close eye on your postings. When you make the kind of investment it takes to get FDA certification, you take seriously anyone who makes false claims. Have a nice day. Brent, if you have any common sense, you know that questions are not false claims. Pathetic. You consistently prove you are unfit for law enforcement, not to mention sheriff. Again, doesn't address the argument that I'm trying to make. Why did you take the money? Justify why you took the money, right? I'm showing my creds to you, Brent. Now you show me your creds. I'm telling you, you're full of it because I was able to float it, and I guess when I don't have the same amount of wealth as you do.
And the point being to take those COVID funds is not fiscally conservative. That's
not
the point.
At all. Not at all.
That really is ultimately that's the push in this dialogue.
Not at all.
Yeah.
He deflects the questions, doesn't bother to answer them because he knows I have him dead to rights on it. But he threatens he's going to sue me.
Right.
Because I named the company that he was working with and I've defamed them and they're going to be keeping an eye on me, but how dare I? Because, it takes all this FDA work. Anyway, if you want to read more of this, we went on for a little while. You can go to this thread. I think it's interesting. Brent does not seem capable of staying on a topic and engaging with you. He does like a lot of them. They immediately change the subject. They parry and deflect. So
yeah,
I'd be more than willing to sit down with Brent anytime, same thing, and have a conversation. I don't think he's going to take me up on it, though. I don't think he has enough common sense to do that.
Yeah, he's pretty much shown he doesn't want to be in the same room with you. He knows how to make his quick exit if he sees you coming.
Yeah, and again, for those that don't recall, as chairman of the Kootenai Republican Central Committee, completely blew me off the very first time I ever met him when I was a candidate. I had to go over and try to introduce myself. He wouldn't give me the time of day. He didn't stay during my vetting questionnaire with the KCRCC. An arrogant SOB. Not impressed with his leadership. And we're going to talk about the ramifications of the poor leadership of Brent Regan that many have been saying for a long time. He needs to go. He's completely radicalized the KCRCC to where it is only him and his small select group of people and friends that are worthy enough of running that organization, and everybody else is a RINO. And everybody overuses the term RINO. Just because somebody does not believe identical to your belief, if they're still practicing Republican principles, they're a Republican.
Well, like on this, if Brent Regan taking PPP money is not considered to be fiscally conservative, that's not a conservative ideal, then why can't there be an argument for that being a RINO practice?
I think it is, but
yes.
Rules for me, but not for thee. Yeah. And again, I'm going to say it. This is complete speculation, just to be certain, since Sue Happy Brent shuts down everybody's arguments with his lawsuit, which, by the way, a little sidetrack. Well, let me finish this and I'll go back to the
Okay. All right.
Is exactly this. You literally took money that you most likely did not need, but you were an opportunist and you saw, hey, free money. And look, brother, they were breaking down my door at the same time. My banker and my CPAs were telling me, hey, it's free, take advantage of it. But no, men of liberty do not take money at the same time from the government. At the same time, when the government tells us to stop operations and to quit working unlawfully, we give them the finger and say, hell no, we're not stopping. You don't have a right to tell us what we can or can't do to provide for our families. That's what men of liberty do, Brent. As leader of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Brent, don't you know how things work with liberty, Brent? So why'd you take the money, Brent? You're RINO, if I'm going to use RINO. Now, I will tell you this. Good sources to me told me that Ed Bajarana, the MC of that infamous Republican town hall, was overheard at a bar in Hayden, Idaho. He was overheard saying that he was scared shitless over the impending lawsuit that he knew was coming.
Don't meet out in public when you're talking about sensitive
in
information.
A bar.
People are listening.
And then he said, but he was going to be okay. He'd been losing work, but he was okay because Brent Regan had offered to take care of his legal fees. Now, again, don't know that that's true, Brent, and your attorneys that are watching. was reported to me. So it'll be interesting to find out whether or not that really happens. But then he followed up by saying, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that in public."
Oh,
so yeah, Ed, you probably might want to look up a book for dummies. It's called Silence for Dummies. It might serve you pretty well.
we know somebody who writes books for dummies.
Yeah. Oh,
Should be working on the next edition.
the person that recruited me and now I'm aligned with.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I want to remind you before we move on into the next segment, share this live stream. For those of you watching us live, share it now to your channel so that more people can join in now while we're live. We're putting out our phone number tonight for sending texts so that we can stay on course. That number is 208-366-4671. You can text the program, and if it fits within the discussion, we may work that in.
Now, last week we talked about some things that were disclosed to me, some warrants that were being issued. We were going to talk about them tonight. Here's what's come out. Coeur d'Alene Police Department has publicly released several reports from the Republican Town Hall event that took place where Teresa Borrenpohl was forcefully removed from the audience for heckling or disruption. And we've beat this one up quite a bit. We've had our experts on that have weighed in, and our belief is that crimes were committed. Did not at all say at any time that Miss Borrenpohl was justified in being loud or obnoxious or disruption, or anybody for that matter, even conservatives. But there is rules to law enforcement. There are things that I, as a patrolman, had to abide by in order to effectively and constitutionally perform my duties. And of course, watching the videos as armchair quarterbacks, we had some running commentaries on things that I saw that I thought were violations of people's, civil rights. It was completely speculation on my behalf, but we have these reports now in, not only from police officers completing their reports that were investigating that incident, but also the detectives. So we have far too much to go over tonight. I'm going to try to go over the highlights. So we're going to jump all over the place.
And I just want to highlight that the reason that we're going back to talking about this event once again, which was the KCRCC legislative town hall from February 22nd of this year. We're discussing it again because it's I know that those of you you've hit this from every angle. It's a lot of opinion. It's going over video. But what happened today was these documents were dropped, and it's 60 plus pages, which are telling us many things that you've speculated on, confirming a lot of the things that you've been saying, and now you've got evidence to go over. So that's where we're headed with this.
Yeah. So we're going to go to that slide, number 3, if you got that up. I'm pulling my separate copy up because I'm blind and I can't see anymore. We're going to scroll through the PDF page. And the very first one we're going to arrive at, if I have the proper copy. Now I'm beginning to think maybe I don't. Okay. We're going to go to page number 6.
Okay.
Police incident report. Right a little bit before that, Mark Stewart was interviewed about the event, and he makes a statement. There were some groups on both sides of politics that were upset during the town hall and that the feeling was tense from the beginning. Mark said that the security appeared to be acting like they were Secret Service. Sheriff Norris and Commissioner Bruce Matari were both interacting with and directing security. So interesting. Of course, Bruce Matari is a special deputy of Bob Norris. At the same time, he's a county commissioner. They go on to talk about, Mark's talking about the event. The event was marked as a question and answer session, but only a few questions were asked of the legislators. Mark and Jamie Haas, who was working with Mark on the legislative committee of the KCRCC. So this is who Jamie Haas is, this Jamie that we're talking about. Jamie had actually gone through the questions before and provided the ones to be used, but only 3 were asked and the event was ended. So she's referring to, everybody that was going to go to this town hall event had to submit their questions on index cards and then present them. And Mark and Jamie went through those questions and gave them to, my guess would be to Ed Baharana to ask,
Right.
those questions. They're probably screening them for content and I don't think to prohibit people from speaking, but for whatever reason, after the event, only very few were actually read, according to this. Nina Beasley, we talked about Nina quite a bit last week and the week before. Nina is also part of the legislative committee of the KCRCC. She, of course, was famous for going with Paul Truett, the owner of Lear Asset Management. I always get that wrong.
Yep.
The security contractor, and they went to the Coeur d'Alene school days in advance of the event to get a layout. So Nina Beasley, the officer says he'd reached out to Nina on multiple occasions. The first time she answered the phone and asked him to call her back that evening, but then agreed to call at 8 o'clock on 2/25/25. I have called her several times since, and she will not return calls. Nina had done a security walk through CHS with Paul Truett on 2/21/25 without notifying school resource officer Joe Renaud. School resource officer Renaud wrote up a report regarding this incident and his following interactions with Paul under case number 25C8040. Of course, we talked about that very report from that SRO a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the discrepancies between Paul, who's supposed to be an expert in executive protection, and his failure to do the basics of what EPs actually do when they're advancing a location. A couple other interesting points. When it came to Jeremy Haas, chairman of the KCRCC Legislative Committee, he reached out to Jamie on 3/3/25 and left a voicemail. They received a voicemail from Jamie on 3/4/25, essentially saying that on the advice of the KCRCC Council, she won't be providing a statement. I did not contact her back, but on 2/27/25, Detective Welch submitted a preservation request on my behalf to Google for Jamie's email that was listed in the below mentioned operations plan. So here you have, a couple interesting things. You have Brent that is publicly stating over and over again how righteous their actions were at the KCRCC. He's spreading his narrative as to why there's no culpability. They didn't do anything wrong. They're the victims. Sheriff Norris acted along with Lear appropriately, and yet now he's telling his people to not answer questions of law enforcement.
Right.
So again, smart move by all means, but if you're so sure of your actions, what's the harm? You've been running your mouth to the public for weeks about how righteous you guys are.
Well, they've spent a lot of time trying to win in the court of public opinion before this goes further.
Yeah.
That's really what's happening.
Lear Asset Management, same thing. Tried to get a hold of him. Of course, he's lawyered up. All these people are lawyered up. So you have Lear Asset Management. Most of his employees, except for I think one or two of them, didn't have representation. They're sharing cameras. They're giving statements. Goes on to say in his report that Lear personnel shall contact chair. He's talking about so I'm going to back up a little bit. One of the things that Lear did as an individual who claims that he is a dignitary, executive protection and dignitary agent, that's what his company does. He doesn't understand operational security. And so in all the panic of the events that took place, he had his operation plans, his event operational plans for his team and his protectees, and he left them at the school. He left them all there so that anybody that found them.
Wait, because that sounds metaphorical almost.
Yeah.
He physically left papers.
Multiple copies of his operational plan.
I just wanted to clarify that.
And they're described as, tactical plan with his logo on the front and a bunch of guys are standing in front of a helicopter in, I think, probably tactical gear.
Oh.
But he left that. And I mean, one of the things in Executive Protection 101 is leave no trace. Don't leave your crap for the opposition or your enemies to obtain your plans.
Or to put those who you're there to protect, putting them at risk by seeing plans laying around.
So they left this at the school. He went back to try to retrieve it, but he still left a copy. Lear personnel shall contact chair. So he's reading this. This detective is talking about part of the plan. Lear personnel shall contact chair KCRCC team at 11:30 hours inside the hall to brief plan. Supervisor shall address entrance, exit avenues, and strategic operation plans to facilitate meeting objectives. So here we have in his own plan that he's meeting with Brent Regan, the contact chair. Well, maybe the contact chair isn't Regan. Maybe it's Jamie Haas. But anyway, he is meeting with KCRCC folks. So they knew that there was a plan going on here. They're going to warn those as part of their plan who are disruptive in the meeting to cease, or they will be removed or sick the direction of the chair. Paul was not able to or refused to talk with law enforcement. So detectives submitted a preservation request for his email as well as listed in his operation plan. We're flying through here. I'm just grabbing interesting paragraphs, and we're going to break this down in far greater detail in a later broadcast. City Clerk Renata McLeod informed me on 2/27/25 via email that Russell Dunn did not have a current security agent license through the city, and thus was in violation of the city ordinance requiring a license to operate as a security agent. So Paul didn't make certain that all of his employees, those working with him at this event, were even licensed appropriately with the city. So not real high speed there. Let's see. Goes on. At this time, there is no credible evidence that a contract between the KCRCC and Lear exists to provide protection. Paul Truett told School Resource Officer Renau on 2/21/25 that there was nothing in place at the time. Brent Regan stated he had not signed a contract and he normally would be the person to do so. Nina Beasley, who had done the walkthrough with Paul, will not return any phone calls. The listed client, Jamie Haas, has declined to speak on advice of KCRCC legal counsel. Warrants will be requested for the email records. Here is where I want you to start paying close attention. 3/28/25. A request was made to interview Sheriff Norris regarding the events at the town hall. This request was responded to by his attorney, Mr. Mahara, who declined my request to interview Norris. Okay. So here's a question to ponder. If you are the sheriff, if you are operating in your official capacity, why would you refuse to talk to detectives? Anybody have a good idea as to why that might be? If you're operating as a sheriff, remember, we were told over and over again that the reason that Coeur d'Alene Police or Kootenai County Sheriff's deputies were not brought into this event, despite the fact they all had credible information that there was going to be a disruption or that people were going to come in and protest. Jordan Redmond said this live on a local podcast. Why didn't they bring in uniforms? Well, because Bob Norris was going to be acting as the official law enforcement of the event. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard. No elected sheriff in a county of this size, that's not Andy in Mayberry, should not be putting hands on anybody unless there is a serious threat taking place, a crime, a felony that must be acted upon immediately because nobody else is there to act. So why is Bob Norris refusing to talk with detectives? Interesting. Goes on. Again, from Detective Haley. His narrative on 2/27/25, while I was working as a school resource officer for Coeur d'Alene High School. Excuse me, I'm going to restate this. This is still the school resource officer, but it's in Detective Haley's report. I was contacted my office and by head custodian for the school, Kelly Human, about some paperwork she found left in the building. Human stated that after the KCRCC town hall on 2/22/25, she found a clipboard ostensibly belonging to Paul Truett. On the clipboard, there were several copies of a security operational plan for the KCRCC town hall. Human informed me after she found it, she placed it on her desk in the office. They go on to talk about giving it back. I'm going to scroll down to the search warrants. So the Coeur d'Alene Police Department did submit for several search warrants. One was an email search warrant that was signed by the Honorable Judge Eckhart, and it was for Jamie Haas, her emails. There was one for, let's see. Again, we just got these earlier, so they're not as laid out as I'd like it to be. There was search warrants also served on Jeremy Loken. Now, Jeremy Loken is a local videographer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He works a lot with the Kootenai Journal, which is, my belief, one of Bob Norris's in-pocket independent news organizations. To find out exactly why I believe that, or it is substantiated. But Jeremy farms out his services. He runs Rumble Page, Coeur d'Alene Freedom Watch.
That's it. Yeah.
He's the one that altered the video that Summer Bushnell was using to state that the drag performer had exposed his genitals.
Yeah.
So Jeremy's been involved in a lot of things around here.
Yeah, and you'll see him at a lot of town halls, different conservative events as the videographer. And he is, always been respectful when you're in a room with him. Yeah.
We're going to fly through this. Page 11 at 14:16 hours, 16:16, so it'd be 4:16 in the afternoon, while still waiting for Jeremy, because he talked to Jeremy earlier and was supposed to get the videos from the event that he taped on behalf of the KCRCC. He came to the house. Nobody was there to let him in. While he was waiting for Jeremy to show up back at the house, he received a call on his work cell phone. This is from the detective. In-house records show to be Charity Joy Clayton's phone number. She is the editor-in-chief and reporter for Kootenai Journal. From a reporter that stated they were with the Kootenai Journal, I explained that they would need to contact our public information officer for any information. They then proceeded to ask me questions, to which I each time referred them to the PD's PIO. One of the questions asked about which Idaho code I was investigating, and the final question asked if I was trying to obtain property from a private citizen without a court order. Now remember, Jeremy is the personal videographer for Charity Joy of the Kootenai Journal. And they came out and interviewed us when I ran for sheriff. Mm-hmm. On 3/10/25, I found out that Jeremy is listed part of the team of the Kootenai Journal as listed on their website. Jeremy, videographer. Jeremy is a photojournalist in Kootenai County, Idaho, who has worked in local television news for 15 years. Goes on, based upon Jeremy not calling me back, a reporter now calling me who is asking me about obtaining property assumed to be the video, and the likelihood that Jeremy gave the reporter my phone number, I came to the conclusion that Jeremy was not going to voluntarily provide the video as he originally stated he would. I returned to the police department and wrote up a residential search warrant for, redacted, the residence that Jeremy shares with his parents. In my original conversation with him, Jeremy stated that he was working when I first knocked on the door, so he couldn't hear me, thus indicating he worked from the residence, and any video he had would also be at the residence. So we're not going to belabor this much anymore, but here you have Jeremy that said he was going to cooperate with law enforcement. He doesn't cooperate. They give him more than enough time to comply. He doesn't do it. They go to his house to try to obtain the evidence that they're looking for. And in the meantime, Charity Joy, a reporter, butts in, calls the detective, and tries to run interference. Now, why is she trying to run interference? It's a good question. We need to ask her that. Somebody needs to ask her that question.
Now, we had a comment on here. Rule number 1 is don't talk to the police. Mm-hmm. Rule number 2 is refer back to rule number 1. Yeah. So you're not really taking cause with the fact that it is common sense, as Brent Regan would say. You just don't talk to the police. You're not required to do it. So don't do it. Wait for your counsel. Yeah,
I'm just reporting the facts.
But in that, the underline is really that Charity Joy running interference for the videographer, and what was she doing in the middle of that?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. We're going to run back down. I think that what's some takeaways from this is when they finally talk about the Borrenpohl incident, after reviewing video after video, not all the video I believe that they have was available to the public. So I think that they obtained some other video that has not been previously released. That's my assumption based on some of these comments. Some of the things that are called out in this investigation, for those of you who think that this is a slam against Norris, an attempt to take him out, attempt to, not serve justice to the KCRCC, all of this stuff. Remember that this has to pass the muster. You cannot enter into evidence, prosecute people erroneously. Otherwise, there's big liability for organizations. So to infer that the Coeur d'Alene Police Department is showing favoritism to one versus the other, you could say the same thing with the sheriff's office. I mean, we can go down that road, and of course, there should be an independent investigation that eventually takes place. But they talk about timelines. Teresa arrives 17 minutes.
Do you have a page that you're on?
Yeah,
there?
I'm on page 15.
All right.
Teresa arrives 17 minutes after Brent Regan gives his warnings about there being a security team that will escort disruptors out of the building. She arrives 14 minutes after Norris does the pledge, and 13 minutes after the MC Ed Baharana asks the crowd to avoid disruption. So the detective's going back and critically looking at timelines saying Teresa has plausible deniability when it comes to she didn't know the rules because the rules were laid out before she ever got there to this open event. I watched a crowd camera, raw video, and attempted to tally the comments, cheers, jeers against the speakers and the comment, cheer, jeers for the speakers. So he's saying pro and against, right? We're going to listen.
Yes.
He said, I counted 13 against and 11 for the speakers. When the cheering would occur, the speakers would have to stop speaking more often than when the against comments occurred. So they're showing balance. Look, say, if you guys are worried about disruptions, anything that would disrupt you from carrying on your conversation, you have to equally say, well, you're being disrupted when people are applauding you and hooting and hollering.
Right.
And that took longer than the jeers.
That's fair. Fair to consider.
Goes on to say at the beginning of the video, he can't hear what Norris is saying, but at 6 seconds into the video, Norris looks towards the stage and states, stop the meeting, but his command is ignored by the MC because Ed wanted to keep talking. Norris turns towards Teresa again, stating, get up or be arrested. He then asks Greg Johnson to get out of his seat, which Greg complies with. We're not going to go over this tonight, but Greg is the individual that Norris eventually bum rushes with Paul Truett out into the outer foyer. He's detained for a very long time. I don't see any justification as to why that occurred.
Yeah.
I think Coeur d'Alene PD came up with a similar understanding as well. Norris turns towards Teresa again, stating, get up, get out, or be arrested. He then asks Greg Johnson to get out of his seat. Norris replies, I'm telling you to leave. Teresa states this is a town hall. Several others near Teresa make statements, and Norris tells them they have to leave as well. So understand that while the sheriff is engaging Teresa, there's others on the sideline that are chirping, and he tells them that they got to leave too. Mm-hmm. Under what authority? And this again shows how out of control, emotionally out of control, Bob Norris, he's not in control of what he is doing. Talks about telling Lear what to do. He says, give me a video. Norris directs Greg to move this. Greg works for Lear further away, and Greg states, Greg is Greg Johnson, the individual that they unlawfully detained. Tells him, Greg yells at Norris, please don't. Greg moved further back from the seat where he'd been out of the way. Lear employee Jesse Jones begins to film with his phone while Lear supervisor Christopher Burke stands by Norris. Norris turns back to Teresa and states, my name is Robert Norris. I'm the sheriff of this county. We're asking you to leave on video. Please get up or be escorted out. Teresa replies, escort out. Norris states, yep, let's go. And then grabs Teresa's right arm. This occurred less than 3 seconds after finishing his warning of please get up or be escorted out. In other words, translated, he didn't give her enough time to comply before he went hands on. Teresa does not stand up. She does not actively pull her arm away. She asks Norris several times, please don't touch me, while Teresa is not standing up. When Norris pulls on her arm, Norris looks at Laura, this is another lady nearby, and tells her that she will be removed also. We're going to keep going on because we're running late on time. At the conclusion, and I got to get down here, they go on to talk about the contradictions between Lear saying she's free to go if she'll just leave, but at the same time, they're putting zip ties around her arms, so they're not really giving her any options. Summary. Here's where we're going to probably leave this. Teresa is heard yelling out at different times during the town hall. Most of her statements are one sentences, and they do not seemingly disrupt the flow of the town hall. The MC, Ed Baharana, draws the crowd's attention to Teresa at one point, which caused cheers and more of a disruption than any statement that Teresa made. That was true.
Mm-hmm.
It is unknown at this time, due to involved parties not participating in interviews, if Norris had been given the authority to trespass by the person responsible for the event. Norris was across the auditorium when he went to Teresa's location and told her to leave. The events that transpired are described above. Jesse, Christopher, Paul, and Russell all put their hands on Teresa against her will. Teresa actively resisted their efforts to use force on her, kicking and biting Christopher. This was different than her reaction when Norris grabbed her arm, which was to passively sit in her chair and not move. Teresa received injuries from the actions directions of Lear and Norris. Read that again. Listen carefully. Teresa received injuries from the actions and directions of Lear and Norris. The injuries received do not rise to the level required for consideration of aggravated battery, but the actions do constitute battery. And here is where you need to read between the lines. The actions taken by those involved forcibly seizing and removing Teresa from the auditorium against her will may rise to the level of kidnapping and or false imprisonment, which shall be evaluated by the city prosecutor. It's going to get very, very interesting in the next several weeks and months to come, as all this is being sorted through and the prosecuting attorneys go through the vast amounts of evidence, whether or not they decide to charge these individuals with the crimes that they committed. And they are serious crimes, the least of which is their unlawful operation of their security teams at that event. Unmarked, some not licensed. But how much ultimately is this going to cost the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee? How much is it going to cost the county? Was Bob Norris operating as the sheriff or as a private citizen? What's the overall culpability of everyone involved? One thing is for certain, it's going to be one heck of a big mess. And I hope that when it's all said and done, we can learn from this, especially as those of us who call ourselves Republicans, on how we better set ourselves up for success if we're going to hold these town halls in a primarily Republican county where people of opposite views are very, very upset. How do we maintain the rule of law while also allowing these people to have their say? What are the appropriate actions? What are the appropriate precautions? Bringing uniformed officers as a presence at a minimum. These are some of the things that we're going to be debating for quite a long time. And as always, I welcome your comments, whether it's on X or Instagram or Facebook. And even if it's a one-on-one conversation, I know I owe many of you a conversation from just today, and I'm looking forward to that. But consider yourself to be an American that has the same rights as other Americans. And ultimately, we have to protect everybody's constitutional rights, regardless of whether or not we think they're dirtbags or not.
I almost hit a wrong button there. Almost ended the whole thing before we're done. I want to remind you to head to our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com, and enter for your chance to win this premium snapback trucker's hat that says Liberty Without Compromise. There's beautiful pictures of it there on the website. Right on the home page are instructions and a big button to enter to win. It is not currently available in our online store, so the only chance to get your version of this hat is by entering to win. All the instructions are there. You even have some steps you can follow to get more than one entry. And then also, I want to thank our affiliates, Midday Squares. Those are our delicious favorite chocolate and cookie dough and peanut butter and brownie snacks that are good for you. You can get 15% off your order with the link that is sitting here in the comment section. 15% off of your entire order of those delicious Midday Squares. I think you had a quote from one of our founders. I'm seeing old notes.
Yeah, well,
but I wondered if you could read it, even though we don't have it to put up on the screen. I don't know if you have it available
find
to
it and
you.
See if I have it. You can vamp for a second,
And then
I may be able to find it.
A reminder to submit your op-ed on our website at libertywithoutcompromise.com. Dan's had a whole lot to say tonight. He's had things to say about Brent Regan. He's had things to say about Democratic protesters on corners, and then how we as conservative in large part have responded to them. And some of what Dan has had to say earlier in the week when he posted a video was very controversial. So if you've got something you want to say about that, we would love to have the respectful dialogue. And you can do that by submitting your op-ed there on the website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. There's a button right in the top of the menu bar. Why don't you share that with us?
This quote comes from Richard Henry Lee, beloved founder. He says, "The first maxim of a man who loves liberty should be never to grant to rulers an atom of power that is not most clearly and indispensably necessary for the safety and well-being of society." So with that, I bid you all a good night. Remember to remain strong and courageous. Start working at understanding why you believe what you believe, and test yourself. Is it because it's truth, or is it because it's tradition and peer response? That's all I got for tonight.
Head to the website, libertywithoutcompromise.com, also to read that latest article by contributing author Watchman Ministry. It's the loss of Judeo-Christian morality and the rise of conspiracy theories. What effect is that having on you here in Kootenai County? It's not just national. How is it affecting our behavior here? It's a good read. It's something that was very timely because there's a lot in there that even you've talked about for months.
Did you write that?
I did not write that. That was submitted by our contributing authors, Watchman Ministry. Why do I always draw a blank on that one?
Because it's late.
So they're just my friends, and I think of their names. But yeah, not all opinions and precise statements are necessarily that of our own. That is one of the beauties of how we like to engage in discussion and the marketplace of ideas here at Liberty Without Compromise. We're willing to hear it and have a respectful back and forth. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Liberty Without Compromise, a live stream broadcast. Again, visit our website. You can watch past episodes there. You need to go subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at the Idaho Sheriff. That is because Facebook is doing a thing where they're removing live streams after a certain period of time. So subscribe to that YouTube channel. You'll always have those archived and latest episodes available to you there. And let's see, Liberty Without, for our podcast. You know what? It's been a long day. We also have a podcast. You can listen to that and subscribe wherever you get your shows. We thank you guys for joining us tonight. Looking forward to next week. Get my head put on correctly here.